with another video. We're on week 2 with the Big Mo. And we're real excited because we got some fun things in store for you today. So let's get started. Here we go. Moses entered Pharaoh's throne room and said,
"The God of the Hebrew people wants his people to worship him in the desert. Let my people go!"
No, I need them here.
The Almighty God is angry with you. He will send plagues.
So God did just that. The Nile River flowed red with blood.
It's raining blood.
All the water in the ponds and pools and fountains turned to blood. Pharaoh cried,
"Make it stop!"
So Moses prayed to God, and the water in Egypt flowed clean and sweet and clear again. A week later, Moses went to Pharaoh and said,
"Let my people go!"
No.
So God sent a second plague to show Pharaoh his power. Frogs invaded Egypt. They splashed in the water, they rolled in the dirt, and they climbed in the windows and jumped on the beds. Pharaoh cried,
"Make it stop!"
So Moses prayed to God, and the frogs jumped back into the Nile River where they belonged. Then God sent a third plague, and dust on the ground turned into tiny, nasty gnats. They buzzed in the air. They landed on people and animals. Moses went to Pharaoh again and said,
"Let my people go."
No.
So then God sent a fourth plague. Thick swarms of flies poured on to Pharaoh's palace and houses of the Egyptians. Every building, every barn, every porch and kitchen was covered with flies. Pharaoh cried,
"Make it stop!"
So Moses prayed to God, and all the flies flew away. Then God sent a fifth plague. All of the livestock in the fields of Egypt died. The horses, donkeys, camels, and cattle, sheep and goats fell over dead. But Pharaoh would not let God's people go. Then God told Moses to throw handfuls of soot from the furnace into the air.
Let them go. Let them go. Don't hold them back anymore.
So he did, and nasty sores called boils broke out on the people and the animals. That was the sixth plague. Moses went to Pharaoh and said,
"Let my people go!"
No.
So God sent a seventh plague. He sent hail, thunder, and lightning. It was the worst storm Egypt had ever seen. The hail flattened the crops in the field and stripped the leaves off the trees. Pharaoh cried,
"Make it stop!"
So Moses prayed to God, and the hailstorm ended. Then God sent the eighth plague. Swarms of locusts covered the land. They ate all the plants and every tree. The insects filled the houses of all the Egyptians. Pharaoh cried,
"Make it stop!"
So Moses prayed to God, and the locusts went away. Then God told Moses to point to the sky. Moses did. A thick darkness covered Egypt. For 3 days, the people couldn't see anything. That was the ninth plague. God told Moses that he had one more plague. At midnight, the Lord said, I will go through every house in the land of Egypt. Every firstborn son will die. but my people will be safe. This was the worst plague of all. Then Pharaoh will let my people go. It all happened just as God said. Pharaoh cried,
Make it stop! Get out now!
So Moses led God's people out of Egypt. Moses led his people through the desert to the shore of the Red Sea. The people looked straight ahead and only saw water. They turned around and saw Pharaoh's army charging across the desert. They cried,
We're gonna die!
Do not be scared. The Lord will fight for you. Be calm and watch what the Lord can do.
So Moses raised his staff towards the sea. Suddenly, the wind blew and the water piled up into huge walls, leaving a dry path through the center of the Red Sea. The Israelites walked to the other side on the dry ground that God provided. Pharaoh's chariots and soldiers raced after the people. When the entire army was in the middle of the sea, God made the walls of the water crash in on them. The sea swallowed the Egyptian army, the chariots, and the horses. But God's people were safe on the other side. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed the story of Moses and the plagues and the Red Sea. But we got a special version of the Red Sea for you right after this. But I wanted to talk real quick about how God had a plan for the Israelites. They thought that God wasn't there for them, but God delivered them out of Egypt, out of slavery. And he sent Moses, the guy who we talked about last week. He couldn't really talk. He wasn't built to be a leader. But God made him into that. And God helped Moses deliver the Israelites from the Egyptians. Now, for our fun part of the video, we're going to see what the Red Sea would have been like if it was metal. All right.
Let's open up this pit!
And remember, kids, Jesus loves